I was staring at my wife's phone screen when my entire world collapsed into a single moment of perfect, crystalline clarity. The notification had lit up while Jessica was in the shower. We'd always had an open phone policy. No secrets, no locked screens, the kind of transparency that marriage counselors applaud. So when her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter where I was making coffee, I glanced down without thinking twice. Last night was incredible. I can still taste you. The sender, Todd Brennan, her boss. My hand froze halfway to the coffee pot. The phone buzzed again. When can we meet again? Thursday's too far away. I picked up the phone. No passcode needed. My fingerprint worked just fine. She'd programmed it in herself 6 months ago, laughing about how we had nothing to hide from each other. The irony would have been funny if my chest wasn't constricting like someone had wrapped steel cables around my ribs. The messages went back 3 months. 3 months of working late. 3 months of team-building exercises. 3 months of business trips to the downtown Marriott that was exactly 12 minutes from our house in suburban Atlanta. I scrolled through the evidence with the detached efficiency of a surgeon examining a tumor. Photos, plans, detailed descriptions of what they'd done in his corner office after everyone else went home. My coffee grew cold. The shower kept running. And I kept reading. Each message, another nail in the coffin of my 8-year marriage. We'd met in college. Georgia State, both of us business majors, both of us ambitious and hungry for success. Jessica had been magnetic, brilliant, driven, with this laugh that could light up an entire room. We'd married at 25, bought our first house at 27, started trying for kids at 29. That was 2 years ago. 2 years of negative pregnancy tests. 2 years of increasing distance that I'd attributed to the stress of fertility treatments and career pressure. Jessica had just made senior account executive at Brennan & Associates, the marketing firm where she'd worked since graduation. Todd Brennan was the founder's son, heir apparent to the company, and according to these messages, the reason my wife had been too tired for intimacy for the past 4 months. The water shut off upstairs. I had maybe 5 minutes before she came down. 5 minutes to decide how to handle the detonation of everything I'd built my adult life around. My phone was already in my hand. I started taking screenshots. Every message, every photo, every incriminating detail. I sent them to my email, to my cloud storage, to a folder I labeled Property Tax 2024, because Jessica never looked at financial documents. That was my domain, just like marketing was hers. 3 minutes left. I opened her email app. Same password she'd used for everything. Jess Luke 2016, the year we bought the house. The year I thought we'd started building our forever. More evidence, hotel confirmations, dinner reservations at restaurants I recognized because I'd suggested them for our anniversary, and she'd said they were too expensive. Apparently not too expensive when Todd was paying. 2 minutes. I heard the hairdryer start upstairs. Bought myself a little more time. Her calendar app showed a pattern I'd been too trusting to notice. Every Thursday evening, client dinner. Every other Tuesday, strategy session, late. The recurring Friday afternoon block labeled downtown meeting that corresponded perfectly with check-in times at the Marriott. I forwarded everything to myself, then carefully placed her phone back exactly where she'd left it, screen down, charging cable at the same angle. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I felt cold, methodical, like I was working through a complex problem at my job as an IT security consultant. Maybe that's what this was, a security breach that needed to be contained and addressed. The hairdryer stopped. I poured my cold coffee down the sink and started a fresh pot. When Jessica walked into the kitchen 3 minutes later, I was scrolling through sports news on my phone, the picture of a regular Tuesday morning. "Morning, babe," she said, kissing my cheek. She smelled like the lavender shampoo I'd bought her for Christmas. She was wearing the navy blue dress I'd always loved, the one that made her green eyes pop. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," I said. Truth. I'd been awake since 3 a.m., though I'd attributed it to work stress, not premonition. "Big presentation today?" "Just the usual grind." She grabbed her phone, glanced at the screen, and I watched her face carefully. Nothing. No guilt, no panic. She smiled at whatever she was reading, probably Todd's messages, and slipped the phone into her purse. "I'll be late tonight. We're pitching the Riverside account and Todd wants the team to prep after hours." "Todd." I kept my voice neutral. "That's what, the third late night this week?" "I know, I'm sorry." She squeezed my shoulder. "Once we land this account, things will calm down. I promise." Promises. We'd made a lot of those 8 years ago, standing in front of 200 people in a church in Savannah. For better or worse, in sickness and health, forsaking all others. "No problem," I said. "I'll probably work late too. Got some system vulnerabilities to patch." That was true enough. Though the vulnerabilities I was thinking about had nothing to do with computer networks and everything to do with the gaping hole where my marriage used to be. Jessica grabbed a yogurt from the fridge, kissed me again, on the lips this time, brief and perfunctory, and headed for the garage. "Love you." "Love you too," I said automatically. The garage door rumbled. Her car started. She was gone. I sat down at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. The screenshots were already there, backed up in triplicate. I stared at them, really seeing them now, letting the reality sink in. My wife was having an affair with her boss. Had been for 3 months. And she'd just lied to my face about where she'd be tonight. I had a choice to make. The thing about discovering your wife's affair is that Tuesday still comes. And Wednesday. And the rest of your life, ticking forward while you figure out what to do with the bomb she's handed you. I went to work. Ran penetration tests on a pharmaceutical company's network. Found 17 vulnerabilities they didn't know they had. Documented everything in the same methodical way I documented Jessica's messages. My boss complimented my thoroughness. I came home, made dinner, asked about her day, listened to her lie about client presentations and budget meetings while I ate chicken piccata, and nodded in the right places. She was good at it. That's what kept catching me. How seamlessly she moved between worlds. How she could text Todd at 2:47 p.m., "Can't wait to taste you again," and call me at 3:15 p.m. to ask if we needed milk. Thursday night she worked late. Real late this time, I assumed. Or maybe not. Maybe she really did have a presentation. The paranoia was its own special hell, not knowing which lies were lies and which were truth. I spent the evening going through our bank statements. The Marriott charges were there, buried in her credit card bills. She'd been paying cash for some of it. ATM withdrawals of $200, $300, always on days that matched the calendar entries I'd found. The ones marked Team Strategy Session or Client Dinner, Hartsfield account. There was no Hartsfield account. I'd checked her company's client list on their public website. I made a spreadsheet. Dated every hotel visit, every suspicious charge, every late night that corresponded with gaps in her location history. Cross-referenced it with her text messages to Todd. The patterns were mathematically perfect. Every Thursday for 3 months, every other Tuesday, 2 Saturdays when I'd been in Charlotte for a security conference. My phone buzzed around 9. Jessica's name lit up the screen. "Hey, babe," I said. "Hi, I'm so sorry, this is running longer than I thought. Brennan's being..." She paused. I heard voices in the background, laughter. "He's being particular about the campaign direction." Brennan. She called him Brennan at home, Todd in the messages. "No problem," I said. "I saved you some dinner." "You're the best. I should be home by 11. She wasn't. She walked through the door at 11:47 p.m., and her hair was different. Not messed up exactly. Just rearranged. Like someone had run their fingers through it and she'd tried to fix it in the car. I was on the couch with my laptop, pretending to work. Hey. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her heels. God, what a night. Rough one? You have no idea. She collapsed next to me, close enough that I could smell her perfume. And underneath it, something else. Men's cologne. Not the kind I wore. My hand stayed steady on the keyboard. Get everything sorted out? Finally. Brennan approved the campaign around 10, but then we had to rebuild half the presentation deck. She leaned her head on my shoulder. I'm exhausted. The lies came so easily, like breathing. I closed my laptop. You should get some sleep. In a minute. Her hand found mine. I feel like I haven't seen you all week. 4 months since she'd touched me like she meant it. 4 months of too tired, and maybe tomorrow, and I think the fertility treatments are messing with my hormones. Now her thumb traced circles on my palm, and I wondered if Todd had done the same thing 3 hours ago. Jess, I know we've been disconnected lately. Her voice went soft, vulnerable. The voice that had made me fall in love with her at a Georgia State mixer 9 years ago. I want to fix that. I miss us. I looked at her. Really looked. Green eyes that used to feel like home. The small scar on her chin from a childhood bike accident. The woman I'd married in Savannah with both our families watching, promising forever in front of God and everyone. She was still in there somewhere. Or maybe she wasn't. Maybe this was who she'd always been, and I'd just been too stupid to see it. I miss us too, I said. Because what else could I say? I wasn't ready yet. Didn't have a lawyer. Didn't have a plan beyond documentation and spreadsheets and the cold certainty that my marriage was a corpse I was still living with. She kissed me. Soft at first, then deeper. Her hand moved to my chest, and I could feel my heart hammering against her palm. I pulled back. You're exhausted. You said so yourself. Confusion flickered across her face. Then understanding. She thought I was being considerate. You're right. Tomorrow? Sure, tomorrow. She went upstairs. I stayed on the couch until I heard the shower running, then opened my laptop again. The divorce attorney websites all said the same thing. Document everything. Don't confront until you've consulted legal counsel. Protect your assets. Georgia was a no-fault divorce state, but evidence of adultery could impact alimony. I bookmarked 4 law firms, made appointments with 3 of them for the following week, spacing them out during my lunch breaks. Used my personal email, not the one Jessica had access to. The shower shut off upstairs. I pulled up the property deed for our house. We'd bought it together, both names on the title. The mortgage was in both names, too. 50-50, like everything in our marriage. Equal partners. Except she'd been getting benefits I didn't know about. My phone buzzed. A text from my brother in Athens. You coming to Mom's birthday thing Saturday? I'd forgotten. Mom was turning 62. There'd be cake and cousins and aunts asking when Jessica and I were finally going to have kids. Wouldn't miss it, I typed back. Bringing Jess? I stared at the question. Thought about introducing my wife to relatives while knowing what I knew. Watching her smile and lie and play the role of devoted daughter-in-law while Todd's cologne still lingered on her skin. She has to work, I wrote. Big presentation. Monday. Easy lies. I was learning. Jessica came downstairs in her pajamas, my old Georgia State t-shirt and cotton shorts. Hair wet, face scrubbed clean. She looked 17. You coming to bed? In a bit, just finishing some work stuff. She hesitated, like she wanted to say something. Then nodded and disappeared back upstairs. I waited until I heard our bedroom door close. Then I opened the hidden folder on my laptop, the one labeled Property Tax 2024, that contained every screenshot, every bank statement, every piece of evidence I'd compiled. 3 months of affair, 8 years of marriage, 2 years of trying for a baby while she was sleeping with her boss. The math didn't work out in her favor. I opened a new document, started typing. Timeline of evidence, Jessica and Todd Brennan. First confirmed contact. August 12th, text message, drinks after work. First hotel visit, August 19th, Marriott downtown, room 847, 24783. Frequency, weekly, increasing to biweekly in October. Total hotel charges identified, $340,000 news. Cash withdrawals corresponding to affair timeline, $2,600. My fingers moved across the keyboard like I was writing code. Clinical, precise, every date, every dollar, every lie cross-referenced and verified. Upstairs, my wife slept in our bed, dreaming whatever dreams cheaters dream. I worked until 3 a.m., building a case against the woman I'd promised forever. The woman who'd promised the same thing back, standing in a Savannah garden with flowers in her hair and truth on her lips. Or maybe that had been a lie too. Maybe all of it had been lies from the very beginning, and I'd just been too in love to see the fine print. The document reached 47 pages before I finally closed my laptop. Tomorrow I'd call the first attorney. Start the process of dismantling 8 years in the most legally advantageous way possible. Tonight, I sat in the dark of our living room and let myself feel it. All of it. The betrayal and the rage and the grief for something that had died 3 months ago while I was still trying to save it. Then I filed those feelings away in the same mental folder as the screenshots. Evidence, documentation, proof. The only things I could trust anymore. The Atlantic City trip was Jessica's idea. "We need this," she'd said 3 weeks ago, curled against me on the couch. Just us. No fertility appointments. No work stress. A long weekend to reconnect. I'd agreed because by then I'd already compiled 47 pages of evidence and scheduled consultations with 3 divorce attorneys. Because watching her plan a romantic getaway while maintaining a 3-month affair with her boss had a certain documentary value. Because I wanted to see exactly how far she'd take the performance. So here we were, Thursday through Sunday at the Borgata, Jessica's hand in mine as we walked through the casino floor toward the poker room. "You sure you don't mind?" she asked, squeezing my fingers. "I know you wanted to see that magic show." "Play your tournament," I said. "I'll find a cash game." She kissed my cheek, her lavender shampoo mixing with cigarette smoke and recycled air. "You're the best, babe. I'll text you when I bust out." I watched her disappear into the tournament area, then found a seat at a 1-2 no-limit table near the back. The dealer was a woman in her 40s, nameplate reading Denise, with efficient hands and tired eyes that had seen everything twice. For 2 hours I played tight, folded mediocre hands, and watched Denise work. She had the rhythm of someone who dealt a million hands. Pitch, burn, turn, no wasted motion. The kind of competence that comes from repetition. Then the pit boss stopped by. He was maybe 50, silver hair, expensive watch, the kind of tan that comes from golf courses and cruise ships. He leaned close to Denise during a shuffle, said something that made her smile. Actually smile, not the professional version she gave the players. "How's our favorite dealer?" he asked, loud enough for the table to hear. "Surviving, Mr. Garrett," Denise said, but her voice had changed. Warmer, personal. Garrett squeezed her shoulder, let his hand linger. "Don't forget about Sunday brunch, 11 sharp." "Wouldn't miss it." He moved on to the next table. Denise's smile faded as she pitched the next hand, but something had shifted in her posture. Looser, distracted. I lost a small pot with pocket jacks, then caught Denise palming something during the next shuffle. Quick, practiced, barely visible, a slip of paper that disappeared into her dealer's apron. The player to my right, A loud regular in a Yankees cap noticed too. Dealer getting love notes? He laughed. Garrett's got all the pretty ones on the payroll. Denise's expression went flat. Sir, please focus on your cards. But Yankees cap was drunk enough not to care. Hey, no judgment. We all know how comp slips work around here. You deal him pocket aces, he deals you room upgrades, right? Sir, my buddy works at the Tropicana. Says half the dealers got arrangements with management. High roller tables, tournament assignments, all that premium stuff. He winked at her. Smart business. The table went quiet. Denise's hands had stopped moving, frozen mid-shuffle. That's enough, said another player, older, reading the room better. But I was watching Denise's face. Watching the same expression I'd seen on Jessica 3 weeks ago when I'd asked casually about her Tuesday night client dinner. That fractional hesitation before the lie, the micro-calculation of what story would hold. Denise recovered, finished the shuffle, dealt the next hand with mechanical precision. But her rhythm was off now, sloppy, the kind of mistakes that come from thinking about something else. I folded my cards and pulled out my phone. Jessica had texted 15 minutes ago. Still in, doubled up with AK. This is my tournament. I can feel it. I typed back, nice. Take your time. Then I opened the calculator app I'd been using to track Jessica's lies. 3 months of data, cross-referenced with credit card statements, calendar entries, text message timestamps. The same methodical documentation that had turned my marriage into a spreadsheet. I watched Denise deal another hand, watched her glance toward where Garrett had disappeared into the high-limit room. The pattern recognition that made me good at IT security was the same skill set that had unraveled Jessica's affair. Details most people missed. Behavioral inconsistencies. The gap between what people said and what they did. Denise was dealing from the bottom of the deck. Not literally, but close enough. Trading something with Garrett, getting something in return. The specifics didn't matter. The structure was identical. I played another orbit, lost a medium pot with ace-queen, then racked my chips. Leaving already? Denise asked, professional smile back in place. Just taking a break, I said. Might come back later. I didn't go back to the poker room. Instead, I found a seat at the high-limit bar with a sightline to the pit boss station and ordered a whiskey I didn't drink. Garrett made his rounds every 40 minutes like clockwork. Stopped at specific tables, spoke to specific dealers, always with that same casual touch. Shoulder squeeze, arm pat, nothing that would look inappropriate to casino surveillance. But the pattern was there once you knew to look for it. At 11:47 p.m., Denise finished her shift. I watched her cash out her tray, say something to the incoming dealer, then head toward the employee corridor. Garrett followed 3 minutes later, maintaining the pretense of separation. My phone buzzed. Busted in 47th place. So close. Meet you in the room? I stared at Jessica's text, at the cheerful disappointment, the easy intimacy of 8 years of marriage compressed into 11 words. Actually playing some more. Running good. Might be late. Okay, don't lose all our money, lol. Love you. I watched those 2 words sit on my screen, delivered in red. The same words she'd texted me the night she'd spent 4 hours at the downtown Marriott with Todd Brennan. Love you too. I finished my whiskey and went back to our room. The comp upgrade Jessica had secured. They gave us a suite for free. My player's card must have finally hit gold status. Had a living room separate from the bedroom. I set up my laptop on the desk and opened the folder I'd labeled Property Tax 2024. Inside were 47 pages of evidence. Screenshots. Bank statements. A timeline cross-referenced with Jessica's work calendar. Hotel receipts. Text messages that started professional and ended explicit. 3 months of documentation. 3 months of watching my wife lie to my face while planning our reconnection weekend. I created a new document and titled it Atlantic City Notes. Then I started typing what I'd observed. Denise and Garrett. The comp slips. The behavioral patterns. The same structure of deception I'd been documenting in my marriage, playing out in a different context with different players. The bedroom door opened around 1:15 a.m. Jessica, still in her tournament clothes, smelling like poker room and perfume. "Hey," she whispered. "You're still up?" "Couldn't sleep," I said, minimizing the window. "How was the tournament?" "So frustrating. I had him dominated and he caught a 3-outer on the river." She moved behind my chair, wrapped her arms around my shoulders. "What are you working on?" "Just some security documentation for a client. Boring stuff." "You work too hard." She kissed the top of my head. "Come to bed." "In a few minutes." She disappeared into the bedroom. I heard water running, the familiar sounds of her nighttime routine. The same routine I'd watched for 8 years, never suspecting that the woman brushing her teeth had spent her afternoon in a hotel room 12 minutes from our house. I reopened my document and kept typing. At 3:30 a.m., I had 6 pages of notes on Denise and Garrett. Observation times, behavioral patterns, the structural similarities to what I documented about Jessica and Todd. The same playbook, different players, same lies. I saved the file and closed my laptop. Through the bedroom doorway, I could see Jessica sleeping, curled on her side, peaceful and beautiful and utterly convincing. In the morning, she'd wake up and suggest breakfast, maybe a walk on the boardwalk, continue building our romantic reconnection weekend. And I'd agree because I'd already scheduled my first attorney consultation for Tuesday at 2 p.m. But first, I was going back to that poker table. I had some questions for Denise about comp slips and pit bosses and the specific mechanics of casino floor arrangements. Professional curiosity, nothing more. After all, I'd gotten very good at documenting deception. The comp slip disappeared into Garrett's jacket pocket with the practiced ease of a street corner transaction. I watched Denise's shoulders relax, watched her fingers find their rhythm again as she dealt the next hand. The whole exchange took maybe 15 seconds. Blink and you'd miss it. But I hadn't blinked in 3 days. My phone buzzed. Jessica, probably wondering where I'd gone. I told her I was grabbing a drink at the bar, needed to clear my head after losing 200 at blackjack. The losses were real enough, calculated even. Nothing makes you invisible in a casino like being a consistent loser. Winners draw attention. Losers blend into the carpet pattern. I pulled out my phone. Sure enough. "Where are you, babe? Ready to head up?" The timestamp read 11:47 p.m. We'd been on the casino floor for 3 hours. Jessica had stuck to penny slots, nursing the same $20, playing the part of a woman enjoying a romantic getaway weekend. She was good at playing parts. 3 months of practice with Todd had refined her performance to something almost flawless. Almost. I typed back, "Bars packed. Give me 10?" Her response came immediately. "Take your time. I'll cash out and meet you at the elevators." I pocketed the phone and turned my attention back to Denise's table. 2 new players had sat down, both men in their 50s wearing polo shirts and wedding rings. Tourists. Garrett had moved to another pit, his attention on a high-stakes baccarat game where someone in a suit was bleeding money at an impressive rate. Denise dealt with mechanical precision now, no special treatment, no lingering glances toward the pit boss station. Just another dealer working the graveyard shift, counting down to her break. I'd seen enough for tonight. The elevator Jessica and I shared with 4 other couples smelled like cigarette smoke and expensive perfume. She leaned against me, her hand finding mine, fingers interlacing with the comfortable familiarity of 8 years. Her lavender shampoo mixed with the recycled casino air. She'd showered before dinner, before we'd come downstairs to gamble and pretend our marriage wasn't a crime scene. "This was nice," she said softly. "Being away from everything." Away from Todd, she meant. Away from the Marriott 12 minutes from our house. Away from the corner office where she'd sent him photos I'd never be able to unsee. Yeah, I said. Nice? The elevator stopped on the 8th floor. A couple in their 20s got off, laughing about something, stumbling slightly. Drunk and happy. I wondered if they were married, if they'd last 8 years, if one of them was already planning their exit strategy. Our floor was 12. The doors opened to reveal hallway carpet in burgundy and gold, wall sconces casting warm light on numbered doors. Room 1247 was at the end of the hall, a corner suite Jessica had booked using points she'd accumulated from her business trips. The irony wasn't lost on me. We were sleeping in a bed her affair had paid for. She swiped the keycard. The lock clicked green. The suite was nicer than anywhere we'd stayed for our actual anniversaries. King bed with a view of the boardwalk, separate sitting area, minibar stocked with overpriced liquor. The kind of room that costs $400 a night during peak season. The kind of room Todd probably expensed when he took Jessica to the downtown Marriott. I'm going to change, Jessica said, heading for the bathroom with her overnight bag. I walked to the window. Below, the boardwalk stretched into darkness, dotted with late-night stragglers and the occasional jogger. The ocean was invisible beyond the lights, but I could hear it. A constant rhythm of waves against sand, relentless and indifferent. My phone buzzed again. Not Jessica this time, an email notification. I pulled it up. The subject line read, Reconsultation, Monday 9 a.m. Lawrence Fitzpatrick, the second attorney on my list, confirming our appointment. I'd scheduled 3 consultations for the week after we returned from Atlantic City. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. 3 different law firms, 3 different approaches to dismantling an 8-year marriage. The bathroom door opened. Jessica emerged wearing the navy blue nightgown I'd bought her for Christmas 2 years ago. She'd worn it exactly twice before tonight. The effort she was putting into this weekend would have been touching if it wasn't so calculated. You okay? She asked, reading something in my expression. Just tired. Long day. She crossed to the bed, pulled back the covers. Come to bed. I stayed at the window. I saw something interesting downstairs, at the blackjack tables. Her hand paused on the comforter. Just for a second, but I caught it. Oh? Dealer and a pit boss. They had this system going. Comp slips, special treatment. Very smooth. You'd never notice unless you were watching for it. Jessica laughed, relaxing. Atlantic City. Everything's a scam, right? Not everything. Some things are just lies dressed up as something else. She tilted her head, studying me. That's philosophical for midnight. I turned from the window, looked at her directly. The dealer's name is Denise, works table 7. Been running her little operation for months, probably. Nobody notices because everyone's focused on their own cards, their own losses. They don't see what's happening right in front of them. Why are you telling me about a crooked dealer? Because I've been thinking about systems, about how they work, about what happens when someone breaks the rules but keeps playing like everything's normal. Jessica's smile had frozen on her face. Luke, how long did you think you could keep dealing from a marked deck? The silence that followed was absolute. Even the ocean seemed to hold its breath. She didn't ask what I meant. Didn't play confused or hurt. The mask just dropped. Her expression went carefully neutral, the same look she probably wore in boardrooms when a pitch went sideways. How long have you known? Her voice was steady, professional almost. Tuesday morning, 7:23 a.m. Todd's text came through while you were in the shower. She did the math. Her eyes widened slightly. That was 4 days ago. 4 days. This whole weekend. Every smile, every touch, every I love you. I've known the entire time. Jessica sat down on the edge of the bed. Not collapsed. Sat. Controlled. And you didn't say anything. I wanted to see how far you'd take it, how long you could maintain the performance. I pulled out my phone, opened the folder I'd titled Property Tax 2024. 47 pages, Jessica. Texts, emails, hotel receipts, calendar entries. 3 months of documentation. Todd's very detailed in his messages. Very explicit about what you two did in room 412 at the Marriott. Her hands were shaking now. Just slightly. Luke, the fertility treatments we couldn't afford. You found $6,400 for hotels and dinners with your boss. The anniversary trip to Savannah you canceled because of work? You took 3 separate trips to the Marriott that week. It wasn't what? Wasn't supposed to happen? Wasn't supposed to mean anything? I kept my voice level. Clinical. The same tone I used when explaining security breaches to clients. You scheduled him around my work trips, used my calendar against me. That takes planning, commitment. Jessica's face had gone pale. Are you going to let me explain? Explain what? I have 3 months of explanations in text form. Todd's very articulate about what he wants to do to you. You're very creative in your responses. She stood up. So what now? You brought me to Atlantic City to what? Humiliate me? I brought you to Atlantic City because you suggested it. Remember? Reconnection weekend. Your idea. And you just played along. I learned from the best. I walked to the door, grabbed my jacket. I have attorney consultations Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. 3 different firms. I'm going to pick whichever one can move fastest. Where are you going? Downstairs. Going to watch Denise work table 7 a little longer. At least her scam is honest about being dishonest. Jessica's voice cracked. Luke, please. The room's paid through Sunday. Enjoy the view. Enjoy the minibar. Enjoy whatever the hell you want. I opened the door. I'll sleep in the car. We'll drive back separately tomorrow. We can fix this. We can... I looked at her one last time. The woman I'd married in Savannah 8 years ago. The woman who'd promised transparency and honesty and forever. You can't fix a deck once it's been marked, I said. You can only stop playing the game. The door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded like the end of everything. The elevator doors closed behind me, sealing off Jessica's voice mid-sentence. My reflection stared back from the polished brass. Same face, different man than the one who'd checked in 3 days ago. I'd left everything in the room except my wallet, phone, and the flash drive in my pocket containing every piece of evidence. Let her deal with checkout. Let her explain to the front desk why she needed to change the reservation from a king suite to a single room. Let her drive the 4 hours back to Atlanta alone with nothing but her thoughts and Todd Brennan's text messages for company. The lobby at 11 p.m. on a Sunday was still buzzing. Slot machines chimed their digital songs. A bachelorette party stumbled past in matching pink shirts, their laughter sharp enough to cut glass. I walked through it all like a ghost, invisible in my grief. My car was in valet. I'd prepaid for the full weekend, another detail I'd handled with the same methodical precision I'd applied to everything else. The attendant brought the Accord around in under 3 minutes, and I tipped him $20 because none of it mattered anymore. Money was just numbers in an account that would soon be divided by lawyers and spite. I didn't head for the Atlantic City Expressway. Not yet. Instead, I drove 6 blocks to a 24-hour diner called the Starlight, wedged between a pawn shop and a shuttered souvenir store. The kind of place where the coffee was always hot and the waitresses had seen everything twice. I needed to sit somewhere that wasn't a casino, wasn't a hotel room, wasn't anywhere Jessica and I had been together. The booth vinyl squeaked when I slid in. A waitress with gray roots and kind eyes brought me coffee without asking, set down a laminated menu that probably hadn't changed since 1987. Long night? She asked. Long marriage. She nodded like that explained everything, which maybe it did, and left me alone. I pulled out my phone. 3 missed calls from Jessica, 2 voicemails I wouldn't listen to. I deleted them without playing a second of audio. Whatever she had to say now was too late by approximately 3 months. The attorney consultations were scheduled for Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I'd taken the whole week off work, told my boss I needed personal time. He hadn't asked questions. 8 years at the same company bought you that kind of courtesy. But sitting in the cracked vinyl booth with burned coffee and the smell of hash browns heavy in the air, I realized I'd made a mistake. Not in documenting everything. Not in confronting her. Not in leaving. The mistake was Denise. I'd watched her work that blackjack table for 3 nights running, seen the way she and Garrett moved around each other like dancers who'd rehearsed their routine 1,000 times. The comp slips, the preferential shuffles, the way high rollers at her table always seemed to have just slightly better luck than probability would suggest. I'd noticed because I was trained to notice. System vulnerabilities, security breaches, patterns that didn't fit the baseline. It was what I did for a living, and apparently what I did for marriage too, though I'd been catastrophically late to spot that particular exploit. But I'd done nothing about Denise and Garrett except observe. I'd filed it away as interesting, as a parallel to my own situation, as evidence that everyone was running some kind of game. Now, staring at my phone with Jessica's deleted voicemails and the flash drive burning a hole in my pocket, I felt something shift. Not anger exactly. Anger was too hot, too immediate. This was colder, more deliberate. Jessica had played me for 3 months. She'd looked me in the eye every morning, kissed me goodbye, told me she loved me, then spent her lunch breaks in a hotel room with Todd Brennan. She'd used our fertility struggles as cover for her lies, turned my hope for a family into a shield for her betrayal. I documented it all with the detached efficiency of an IT audit. Screenshots, backups, timestamps, financial records. 47 pages of evidence that would make any divorce attorney salivate. But documentation wasn't enough anymore. The waitress refilled my coffee. I ordered eggs and toast I wouldn't eat, just to justify taking up the booth. My phone buzzed. Jessica again. I sent it to voicemail and opened my browser instead. It took me 15 minutes to find what I was looking for. The Borgata's corporate website listed a compliance hotline for reporting suspicious activity. Anonymous tips were encouraged. They took their gaming license seriously. Had to, with the New Jersey Casino Control Commission breathing down their neck. I could report what I'd seen. Denise's comp slip manipulation, Garrett's involvement, the patterns I'd observed over 3 nights of playing the role of oblivious husband on a romantic getaway. But that felt too clean. Too easy. Too much like what the old Luke would do. The one who believed in systems and procedures and doing things by the book. The old Luke had trusted his wife, had believed in their open phone policy and their honest communication and their shared dreams of starting a family. The old Luke had been an idiot. I closed the browser and opened my photos instead. Scrolled back through the weekend. There, Saturday night, 11:47 p.m. I'd taken a picture of my chips at Denise's table, a casual shot that happened to capture her hands mid-deal and Garrett standing in the background. You couldn't see the comp slip exchange, but you could see them both, together, at a specific time and place. Sunday afternoon, 3:22 p.m. Another shot, this one showing Denise's tip jar. I'd photographed it because I was bored, because Jessica was in the bathroom, because I was killing time at a blackjack table while my marriage bled out in a hotel room upstairs. But now I looked at it differently. The jar was full. Unusually full for mid-afternoon on a Sunday. Chips of various denominations, mostly reds and greens, but I could see at least 3 blacks. $100 chips that serious players tipped after serious wins. I zoomed in. The image quality was decent, good enough to make out individual chips. Good enough to see that one of the blacks had a subtle discoloration along the edge, a manufacturing defect or damage that made it distinctive. I'd been at that table for 40 minutes. I'd seen exactly 2 players tip black chips in that time, both after significant hands. I'd watch Denise pocket them with the same practiced smile she gave everyone. But when I'd cashed out and walked away, I'd glanced back. Force of habit, the same way I always checked locked doors twice, and seen Garrett standing at her table during her break. Seen him reach into the tip jar, casual as anything, and palm something that looked an awful lot like those black chips. Skimming from a dealer's tips. That was new. That was bold. That was also incredibly stupid, because casinos had cameras everywhere and pit bosses weren't supposed to touch dealers' tip jars under any circumstances. Unless Garrett wasn't worried about cameras. Unless he knew exactly where the blind spots were, or which security guards to pay off, or how to time his movements to avoid detection. Unless this wasn't just about comp slips and preferential treatment. Unless it was bigger. My eggs arrived. I pushed them around the plate and drank more coffee and felt the cold calculations spreading through my chest like frost. Jessica had taught me something valuable this weekend, even if she didn't know it yet. She'd taught me that documentation wasn't enough. That evidence only mattered if you used it right. That the difference between being a victim and taking control was all about timing and leverage and knowing exactly when to show your cards. I had documentation on Jessica. 47 pages that would hold up in any divorce court in Georgia. But I also had something else now. Something that had nothing to do with my marriage and everything to do with the man I was becoming in this booth, in this moment, with cold eggs and colder coffee and a flash drive full of evidence that my wife had destroyed everything we'd built together. I had leverage on Denise and Garrett, and I was going to use it. The diner smelled like burnt coffee and fryer grease. I'd been sitting in the same booth for 40 minutes, watching the Atlantic City skyline through salt-stained windows, while a waitress named Pam refilled my cup every 10 minutes whether I touched it or not. My phone sat face up on the table. No calls from Jessica. No texts begging me to come back, to talk, to explain. The silence told me everything I needed to know about what our marriage had actually meant to her. I pulled out the napkin where I'd scribbled notes about Denise and Garrett. The dealer with the careful hands and the pit boss with the expensive watch. 3 comp slips during my observation period, all handled with the same choreographed precision. A whispered conversation, a folded piece of paper. Room upgrades that materialized without computer entries. The old Luke would have reported it to casino management. Filed a complaint. Believed the system would handle it. The new Luke understood that systems only worked for people who already had power. I opened my phone and started a new note. Documented everything I'd observed over the past 4 days while pretending my marriage wasn't roadkill. The timing of Garrett's appearances at Denise's table. The specific players who received comp slips, always tourists, always winners, always grateful enough not to ask questions. The way Denise's tip jar seemed lighter at the end of her shifts than the volume of play would suggest. My phone buzzed. Not Jessica. My brother, Ryan. Mom's asking if you guys are having fun in AC. What should I tell her? I stared at the message. Thought about all the times over the past 3 months I'd covered for Jessica's lies without knowing it. She's working late. Big presentation tomorrow. Team dinner. Tell her we're having a great time, I typed back. I'll call her next week. One more lie wouldn't matter. Not when I'd been living in a house built from them. I paid for coffee I'd barely touched and walked back toward the Borgata. Not to the room. I'd never step foot in that particular crime scene again. To the casino floor. It was just past noon on a Wednesday. Lighter crowd than the weekend rush. Easier to observe without being obvious about it. I found a seat at a blackjack table 3 spots down from where Denise was dealing poker. Different dealer, older guy with tired eyes and mechanical movements. I played the minimum, lost 3 hands in a row without caring, and watched. Garrett appeared at 12:47. Same expensive watch, same easy smile. He stopped at Denise's table, said something that made 2 of the players laugh. Casual, friendly. The kind of pit boss who made tourists feel like high rollers. Then I saw it. The tell I'd missed before. Garrett's left hand resting on the edge of the table, index finger tapping twice. Denise's eyes flicked to him, then to a player in seat 4, middle-aged guy, wedding ring, stack of chips that suggested he'd been winning. She dealt the next hand. The player in seat 4 folded early despite decent cards. 2 hands later, Garrett was back. Another tap, different player. Same pattern. They weren't just running comp slip schemes. They were signaling. My dealer busted. I collected my minimal winnings and moved to a slot machine with a clear sight line to Denise's table. Pulled out my phone and opened the camera app. Pretended to scroll through photos while actually recording video. 15 minutes of footage. 3 more signals. 3 more players making decisions that didn't match their cards. The old Luke would have been horrified. The new Luke felt something else entirely. Opportunity. I spent the rest of the afternoon in the hotel business center, a glorified closet with 2 computers and a printer that jammed every 3rd page. Uploaded my phone videos to a cloud account. Made notes with timestamps. Cross-referenced dealer schedules I'd photographed from a bulletin board near the employee entrance. Denise worked Wednesday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Garrett supervised the same floor, same shifts. They'd been running this operation for at least 6 months, probably longer. Long enough to get comfortable. Long enough to get sloppy. My phone buzzed again. Jessica this time. We need to talk. I stared at the message. Thought about 4 days of her lying to my face while planning our reconnection weekend. Thought about 3 months of Thursday nights and Tuesday lunches and every other excuse she'd manufactured. Thought about 2 years of fertility treatments while she was probably sleeping with Todd in hotel rooms, exactly 12 minutes from our house. No, I typed back. We really don't. I blocked her number before she could respond. The Borgata's security office was on the 3rd floor, past the high-limit rooms and the private poker lounges. I'd noticed it on day 2, back when I was still pretending to be a happy husband on a romantic getaway. A unmarked door with a camera above it and a card key reader that glowed red. I wasn't going there. Not yet. Instead, I went back to the casino floor and found a roulette table with a clear view of the poker section. Ordered a whiskey I didn't plan to drink and watched the shift change at 7 p.m. Denise counted out her tray with the same careful precision she brought to everything. Stacked chips in perfect columns, signed paperwork, collected her tip jar, noticeably lighter than it should have been after an 8-hour shift on a Wednesday. Garrett walked her to the employee entrance. They didn't touch, didn't stand too close, didn't do anything that would draw attention. But I saw the way he angled his body toward hers. The way she smiled at something he said. They weren't just business partners. I pulled out my phone and added another note to my growing file. Denise and Garrett. Personal relationship. Leverage point. The divorce attorney I'd contacted was named Patricia Vance. Her office was in Cherry Hill, just across the bridge from Philadelphia, and her assistant had squeezed me in for Friday at 2 p.m. I'd found her through a colleague who'd gone through his own messy split 3 years ago. She's expensive, he'd warned me, but she's a shark. I needed a shark. But first, I needed insurance. Thursday morning, I went back to the Borgata. Different clothes, baseball cap, sunglasses, tourist camouflage. I played slots for an hour, lost $60, and watched Denise's table from 3 different angles. Garrett showed up at 12:51, 4 minutes later than yesterday. The signal came at 1:03, 2 taps, player in seat 2. I recorded it all. At 2:15, I walked to the poker table and waited for an open seat. Welcome, Denise said, her professional smile firmly in place. Up close, she was younger than I'd thought. Maybe 28, with blonde hair pulled back in a neat ponytail and green eyes that reminded me painfully of Jessica's. First time playing with us? Second trip to Atlantic City, I said. First time at this table. I bought in for 300, played conservatively, folded more than I bet. Watched Garrett make his rounds. At 247, his finger tapped twice. I was in seat 5. The hand was decent. King-queen suited. The flop came king-high. I should have bet. Instead, I folded. Denise's eyes met mine for just a second. Long enough for me to see the question there. I smiled. Pushed a $5 chip toward her as a tip. Thanks for the game. Come back anytime, she said. I wouldn't. But now she'd remember me. The tourist who took the signal, the player who understood. That night, I sat in a different hotel, a Holiday Inn 10 miles down the coast, and organized everything into 2 separate files. File 1, Jessica. 47 pages of evidence. Screenshots, emails, hotel receipts, calendar entries. A 3-month affair documented with the thoroughness of an IT security audit. This file went to Patricia Vance tomorrow. File 2, Denise and Garrett. Video footage, timestamps, pattern analysis. A casino scheme that violated about 15 different gaming regulations and probably constituted fraud. This file went nowhere, yet. My phone sat next to my laptop. Still blocked from Jessica's number, but I could see the notification count climbing. 17 missed calls, 23 texts, 2 voicemails I'd never listened to. Ryan had texted again. Mom's worried. Call her. I would. Eventually. After I'd figured out what to tell her about why her son's 8-year marriage had imploded in an Atlantic City hotel room. For now, I had work to do. I opened a new browser window and started researching New Jersey Gaming Commission regulations. Penalties for dealer fraud. Whistleblower protections. Criminal versus civil liability. The old Luke would have reported Denise and Garrett tomorrow. Done the right thing. Believed in justice. The new Luke understood that justice was just another word for leverage, and I was going to need all the leverage I could get. Patricia Vance's office overlooked the Delaware River, all glass and steel and expensive furniture that screamed success. She was 50-something, with silver hair cut sharp as a blade and eyes that missed nothing. This is exceptional documentation, she said, scrolling through the file I'd sent her. Most clients come in with suspicions and maybe a few text messages. You've built a complete case. I work in IT security, I said. I'm thorough. Thorough enough to win. She closed her laptop. Georgia's a no-fault state, but adultery affects alimony. With this evidence, she won't get a dime. The house is jointly owned, so that'll be split, but everything else tilts in your favor. I nodded. Felt nothing. The satisfaction I'd expected didn't come. I can file Monday, Patricia continued. Have her served by Wednesday. Given the documentation, I'd estimate 6 months to finalize, maybe less if she doesn't contest. 6 months to erase 8 years. The math seemed wrong somehow. There's one thing, I said. Her boss, Todd Brennan. Is there any legal action? Against him? Not really. He's not married, you said. No alienation of affection claim in Georgia. She paused. Though I imagine his company's HR department would be very interested in a supervisor-subordinate relationship, especially one documented this thoroughly. I thought about Todd Brennan, his corner office, his detailed text messages about what he wanted to do to my wife, the casual way he'd destroyed my marriage like it was a minor inconvenience to his lunch schedule. I'll handle that separately, I said. Patricia smiled. It wasn't warm. I like you, Luke. You think strategically. That's rare in divorce cases. Most people are too emotional to see the angles. I'd used up all my emotions in a diner booth 4 days ago. What was left was just calculation. I drove back to Atlanta on Saturday. 8 hours alone with nothing but highway and the wreckage of my marriage. Jessica had beaten me home. Her car was in the driveway. Her presence obvious in the lights burning in our bedroom. Our bedroom? It wouldn't be for much longer. I parked on the street and sat there for 10 minutes, staring at the house we'd bought at 27. The house where we were supposed to raise kids. The house that was now just another asset to be divided by lawyers. My phone buzzed. Ryan again. Mom's birthday dinner is tomorrow. You coming? I'd forgotten again. Mom turning 62, the whole family gathering in Athens, aunts asking about grandchildren that would never exist. I'll be there, I typed. Coming alone, I'll explain later. The front door opened. Jessica stood backlit in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. I got out of the car. Luke, don't. I walked past her into the house. It smelled the same, looked the same. Everything exactly as I'd left it Tuesday morning when my world was still intact. I'm here to pack some things. I'll be gone in an hour. Please, can we just talk? You had 3 months to talk. You chose to spend that time with Todd instead. Her face crumpled. Real tears, or a good performance. I couldn't tell anymore. Didn't care to learn. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. I was confused and stressed and you scheduled him around my work calendar. That takes planning, Jessica. That's not confusion. That's strategy. I went upstairs to our bedroom, started pulling clothes from my dresser. She followed, hovering in the doorway like a ghost haunting her own life. Where are you going? Extended stay hotel. I'll find an apartment next week. I grabbed my laptop bag from the closet. You'll be served with papers on Wednesday. Patricia Vance is my attorney. Get your own. You already hired a lawyer? I hired 3. She was the best. I zipped the bag closed. I'm keeping the documentation, all of it. Screenshots, emails, hotel receipts. If you want to make this difficult, I'll make sure Todd's company sees every message, every photo, every detail of your 3-month performance review. Jessica went pale. You wouldn't... Try me. I pushed past her with my bag, went back downstairs, grabbed my desktop computer from the office, the framed photo of my parents from the mantle, the coffee maker because I'd bought it, and I'd be damned if she got to keep it. She stood in the living room, crying. Real sobs now, the kind that shook her whole body. I love you, she said. I know I destroyed everything, but I love you. I want to fix this. I stopped at the door, looked at her one last time. The woman I'd married in Savannah. The woman who'd promised forever. You can't fix marked cards, I said. You can only stop playing. The door closed behind me with the same soft click as the hotel room in Atlantic City. Final, definitive, done. Mom's birthday dinner was awkward in the way only family gatherings can be. 23 people crammed into a restaurant in Athens, passing plates and stories and questions I didn't want to answer. Where's Jessica? My Aunt Carol asked within 5 minutes of sitting down. Working, I said. The lie came easy now. I'd had practice. But Ryan knew. I'd told him in the parking lot before we went inside. Kept it brief. She had an affair. I'm filing for divorce. His face had gone through shock, anger, sympathy in rapid succession. Then he'd hugged me, hard, and said, Whatever you need, brother. Mom knew something was wrong. Mothers always know. But she didn't push, just squeezed my hand during dessert and whispered, Come by the house tomorrow. We'll talk. I did. Told her everything while we sat on her back porch drinking sweet tea in the Georgia heat. She cried. I didn't. I'd used up all my tears somewhere on I-85 between Atlanta and Athens. What are you going to do? She asked. Move forward. Find an apartment. Focus on work. Let the lawyers handle the rest. I mean with your heart, Luke. What are you going to do with all that pain? I didn't have an answer for that. The divorce moved faster than Patricia predicted. Jessica didn't contest. Didn't fight. Signed everything her attorney put in front of her with the same mechanical precision Denise had used counting chips. We split the house 50-50. I took my retirement accounts. She kept hers. The furniture got divided in a conference room with 2 lawyers and a mediator who'd probably seen this exact scene 1,000 times. The coffee maker, Jessica said at one point, and almost smiled. You really took the coffee maker. I really did. That was the only moment that felt remotely human. 4 months after Atlantic City, it was done. Signed, filed, finalized. 8 years erased by paperwork and a judge's signature. I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Brookhaven, bought new furniture, established new routines, went to work, came home, existed in the space between who I'd been and who I was becoming. Ryan dragged me to a Braves game. My coworkers took me out for drinks. Everyone meant well. Everyone said the same things. You'll get through this. Time heals everything. She didn't deserve you. Maybe they were right. Maybe time would eventually fill in the crater where my marriage used to be. But some nights, I'd sit in my new apartment with my rescued coffee maker and think about Denise and Garrett. About the file I'd never sent to the Gaming Commission. About leverage unused and justice unserved. The old Luke would have reported them. Done the right thing. The new Luke understood that sometimes the right thing was just another luxury you couldn't afford. 6 months after the divorce finalized, I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. Subject: Thank you. Luke. You don't know me, but I'm a dealer at the Borgata. Denise Miller was my friend. I wanted you to know that she and Garrett were arrested last month. Gaming Commission investigation. Turns out someone submitted anonymous evidence. Videos, timestamps, pattern analysis, very thorough documentation. Denise is cooperating. She says Garrett pressured her into it, threatened her job if she didn't go along. She might avoid jail time. Garrett won't. I don't know if you had anything to do with the evidence, but if you did, thank you. She was scared for months, too scared to report it herself. Someone gave her a way out. A grateful friend. I read the email 3 times, then deleted it. The file I'd compiled in Atlantic City had sat on my hard drive for 8 months, encrypted, backed up, untouched. I'd told myself I was keeping it as insurance, as leverage, as proof that I'd learned how the real world worked. But 2 weeks ago, I'd sent it. Anonymous submission through the Gaming Commission's tip line. No name, no contact information. Just evidence and timestamps and a detailed breakdown of every signal, every comp slip, every violation I documented while my marriage died in a hotel room 12 floors above. I told myself it was about justice, about doing the right thing, even if it took me 8 months to find the courage. But sitting in my apartment with that email glowing on my screen, I knew the truth. I'd sent the file because Denise had reminded me of Jessica. Because they'd both been caught in systems they'd helped build, making choices that seemed smart until they weren't. Because I'd wanted to save someone, even if I couldn't save my marriage. Or maybe I'd sent it because the new Luke wasn't so different from the old one after all. Maybe I still believed in systems. In evidence. In the idea that documentation mattered, that truth eventually won, that doing the right thing was its own reward even when it came 8 months late. I closed the email and looked around my apartment. New furniture, new routines, new life, the same coffee maker. Some things you keep. Some things you let go. Some things you document and file away and eventually, when you're ready, send out into the world to do whatever good they can. A year after Atlantic City, I was having coffee with Ryan when he asked the question everyone had been dancing around. You dating yet? No. You should. It's been a year, man. You're allowed to move on. I thought about Jessica, about trust and transparency and open phone policies that had meant nothing. About 8 years built on a foundation that turned out to be sand. I don't know if I can do it again, I said. Trust someone like that. Ryan was quiet for a minute. Then, You know what Dad used to say about poker? Our father had died when we were in college. Heart attack at 53. But he'd loved poker, played in a weekly game for 20 years. He said the cards don't care about the last hand, Ryan continued. You can't play scared because someone bluffed you once. You just have to play smarter. Pay attention. Trust the math, not the performance. That's different. Is it? You documented everything with Jessica. You saw the patterns. You trusted your evidence. He leaned forward. That's not a weakness, Luke. That's your strength. You know how to read systems. You know when something's off. Most people don't have that. Didn't help me see it for 3 months. No, but once you saw it, you handled it. You didn't fall apart. You didn't make it messy. You documented, strategized, and executed. He smiled. Dad would have been proud. Mom too, even if she won't say it. I sipped my coffee. Thought about Denise and Garrett. About evidence sent anonymously. About systems that eventually caught up with people who broke the rules. Maybe, I said. Definitely. Ryan stood up. Come on, we're going to a thing tonight. Friend of mine is having people over. Normal people. No one will ask about your divorce. I don't. You're coming. You've been hiding in that apartment for a year. Time to rejoin the world. The party was in Virginia Highland. A backyard gathering with string lights and a grill and 30 people I didn't know. Ryan introduced me around. I made small talk, drank beer, pretended to be someone who did this kind of thing regularly. You work in IT? A woman asked. She was maybe 30, dark hair, warm smile. Her name was Emily. She taught high school English. Security consulting, I said. I find vulnerabilities in systems. That sounds fascinating and also terrifying. It's mostly boring. A lot of documentation. She laughed. I grade essays for a living. I understand documentation. We talked for 20 minutes. Books, work, Atlanta traffic. Easy conversation, the kind that flows without effort. She didn't ask if I was married, didn't probe into my past. Just existed in the present moment, talking about teaching and technology and whether the Braves had any chance this season. When the party wound down, she wrote her number on a napkin. If you ever want to grab coffee and talk about boring documentation, let me know. I took the napkin, folded it carefully, put it in my wallet next to my driver's license and the business card for Patricia Vance that I'd kept as a reminder. I might do that, I said. And I meant it. 2 years after Atlantic City, I was having dinner with Emily when she asked about my ex-wife. We'd been dating for 6 months, taking it slow. Coffee dates that turned into dinners. Dinners that turned into weekend trips. Building something careful and deliberate, brick by brick. I'd told her I was divorced, told her it had been messy, but I hadn't told her the details. You don't have to talk about it, Emily said. But I feel like there's this whole part of your life I don't know. So I told her. Not everything. Not the 47 pages of documentation or the nights I'd spent watching her sleep while knowing what I knew. But enough. The affair. The discovery. The Atlantic City confrontation. The divorce. Emily listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. That's awful, she finally said. I'm sorry that happened to you. It was 2 years ago. I'm past it. Are you? I thought about that. About the apartment I still lived in alone. About the coffee maker I'd rescued from my marriage. About the way I still checked my phone compulsively, still documented everything, still looked for patterns in behavior that might indicate deception. Mostly, I said. I'm working on it. Emily reached across the table and took my hand. I'm not her. You know that, right? I know. I mean it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to cheat on you. I'm not going to make you question reality. She squeezed my fingers. But you have to let me in. You have to trust that not everyone is running a game. I looked at her. Really looked. At the woman who'd spent 6 months being patient with my walls and my documentation and my need to verify everything twice. "I'm trying," I said. "I know. And I'll wait." "But Luke," her eyes were serious. "At some point you have to decide. Are you going to spend the rest of your life protecting yourself from the last person who hurt you? Or are you going to take a chance on something new?" 3 years after Atlantic City, I proposed to Emily in Savannah. Not the same church where I'd married Jessica. Not the same garden. A different place entirely. A small restaurant overlooking the river, just the two of us, and a ring I'd spent 2 months picking out. She said yes. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony in Athens. My mom cried. Ryan was my best man. Emily's student sent a card signed by all 140 of them. Jessica wasn't invited. I hadn't spoken to her since the divorce finalized. Heard through mutual friends that she'd left Brennan and Associates. That Todd had been quietly let go after HR received anonymous documentation of their relationship. That she'd moved to Charlotte and was working for a different firm. I hoped she was okay. Hoped she'd learned something. Hoped she'd found whatever she'd been looking for in those hotel rooms. But mostly, I didn't think about her at all. 5 years after Atlantic City, Emily and I bought a house in Decatur. 3 bedrooms, big backyard, the kind of place where kids could play and dogs could run. We got the dog first, a rescue named Cooper who'd been abandoned by his previous owners. He had trust issues, barked at strangers, took months to settle in. Emily was patient with him, the same way she'd been patient with me. He just needs time, she'd say, sitting on the floor while Cooper hid under the couch. He needs to learn that not everyone is going to hurt him. I'd watch her work with him, gentle and consistent, and think about second chances. About how trust wasn't something you gave all at once. How it was built slowly, through small moments and consistent behavior and the willingness to be vulnerable even when it scared you. Cooper eventually came out from under the couch. Eventually stopped barking at every noise. Eventually learned that home was safe. So did I. 7 years after Atlantic City, Emily told me she was pregnant. We'd been trying for 6 months. Not the clinical, scheduled, soul-crushing way Jessica and I had tried. Just trying, hoping, building towards something together. When the test came back positive, I cried. Actually cried, for the first time since the divorce. "You okay?" Emily asked, holding me in our bathroom while Cooper whined outside the door. "Yeah," I said. I didn't think I'd get this. A family, a real one. You have it now." Our daughter was born 8 months later. We named her Claire, after Emily's grandmother. She had Emily's dark hair and my eyes and a cry that could wake the dead. I held her in the hospital and felt something shift. All the documentation, all the evidence, all the careful walls I'd built, none of it mattered compared to this. This tiny person who trusted me completely, who had no choice but to believe I'd keep her safe. "I won't let you down," I whispered to her. "I promise." It was the first promise I'd made in 7 years that I knew I could keep. 10 years after Atlantic City, I was cleaning out my home office when I found the flash drive. It was in a box of old electronics, buried under cables and adapters and obsolete hard drives. The label had faded, but I knew what it was. Property Tax 2024. 47 pages of evidence from a marriage that had ended a decade ago. I held it in my hand, this tiny piece of plastic that had once contained my entire world's destruction. Emily appeared in the doorway. "What's that?" "Nothing important, just old files." She looked at me, knew me well enough to see through the lie. "From before?" "Yeah. You should delete it." "I know." But I didn't. Not right away. I sat there holding it, remembering the man I'd been. The one who'd documented everything, who'd built cases and strategized and protected himself with evidence and leverage. That man had been necessary. He'd gotten me through the worst period of my life. He'd taught me to trust my instincts, to see patterns, to not ignore red flags just because facing them was painful. But he'd also been scared, hurt, unable to believe that anything good could last. I wasn't that man anymore. I had a wife who loved me, a daughter who was learning to walk, a dog who slept at the foot of our bed, a house full of noise and mess, and the beautiful chaos of actual life. I had documentation of a different kind now. Photos of Claire's first birthday, videos of Emily reading bedtime stories, memories built on trust and transparency, and the daily choice to be vulnerable with someone who'd earned it. I plugged the flash drive into my computer, opened the folder one last time, scrolled through screenshots of messages I'd once memorized. Then I deleted it all. Every file, every photo, every piece of evidence, emptied the trash, reformatted the drive, destroyed the physical documentation of a pain I'd been carrying for 10 years. "You okay?" Emily asked from the doorway. I turned to her, to my wife, my partner. The woman who'd taught me that trust wasn't about documentation. It was about choice. The daily choice to believe in someone, to build something together, to risk being hurt because the alternative was living in fear forever. "Yeah," I said. "I'm good." And I meant it. The thing about marked cards is this. Eventually, you have to decide whether you're going to spend your whole life looking for marks or whether you're going to trust that the next deck might be clean. Jessica taught me to look for patterns, to document, to trust evidence over promises. Emily taught me that evidence isn't everything, that sometimes you have to make a leap based on nothing but hope and the belief that not everyone is running a game. Both lessons were necessary. Both made me who I am. I don't regret the documentation. Don't regret the careful dismantling of my first marriage or the evidence I sent to the Gaming Commission. Those actions were right for that moment, for that version of me. But I also don't regret deleting the files. Don't regret choosing to stop carrying that weight. Don't regret trusting Emily even when every instinct told me to protect myself. Because here's what I learned in the 10 years after Atlantic City. You can't build a life on evidence alone. You can't love someone while constantly looking for proof they'll betray you. You can't create something real while protecting yourself from everything that might hurt. At some point, you have to choose. Documentation or trust. Protection or vulnerability. The safety of loneliness or the risk of connection. I chose risk. Chose trust. Chose to believe that the deck Emily and I were playing with was clean, even knowing that marked cards exist, even carrying the scars from the last time I'd been wrong. And so far, 10 years, 1 marriage, 1 daughter, and 1 neurotic rescue dog later, I haven't regretted it. Not once. Not ever. Some games are worth playing, even when you know the risks. Some people are worth trusting, even after you've been burned. Some futures are worth building, even on the ruins of everything that came before. That's not naivety. It's not forgetting what happened or pretending the pain wasn't real. It's just the choice to keep dealing, keep playing, keep believing that the next hand might be the one that changes everything. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, if you're very careful, if you're willing to risk everything one more time, it is.